This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
Want to make a difference in your community but not sure how? Go to GoFundMe.com right now and start a GoFundMe. Seriously. Your next fundraiser doesn't have to start in a school parking lot or a church basement. You can start a GoFundMe today in just minutes. Fundraise for yourself, a friend, or family member, or an organization. All that matters is that you care about them. GoFundMe is the trusted place to fundraise for what you care about. With no pressure to hit your fundraising goal, but tons of tools to help you reach it, you can confidently start fundraising right now. Whether it's creative, local, or critical, your cause matters. And there's a reason why GoFundMe is backed by millions and chosen by fundraisers everywhere. It works, and it matters. GoFundMe helps you make a real difference. Start your GoFundMe today at GoFundMe.com. That's GoFundMe.com. GoFundMe.com. This is a commercial message brought to you by GoFundMe.
What's up, babes?
Have been waiting to hear since 1974. The Washington Capitals are the 2018 Stanley Cup champions. It's not a dream. It's not a desert mirage. It's Lord Stanley, and he is coming to Washington.
Welcome back to Japers Rink Radio. I guess I'm a little rusty because that intro was weird and disjointed. But my name is Greg Young, and before I introduce Corey Sznajder, I just want to get a quick note at the end of the show. I'm going to be giving a little bit of a my plan for the year, but more on that later. But for our first guest of the year, I wanted no one other than the legendary and friend of the friend, I'm going to say Japers Rink best friend, Corey Sznajder is on to help give an unacceptably late season preview to the Washington Capitals. But Corey, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. I'll try to live up to that introduction there.
Yeah, it was rambling, but hopefully it was positive enough.
It was positive, yeah.
Absolutely. So, Corey, what did you do on your summer vacation? I'm recording this in October. So, how was your summer, man?
Well, I did a lot of tracking for the playoffs just for this project I was doing for my Substack to kind of give like a little retrospective and see what kind of offense wins in the postseason. Mm-hmm. And other than that, I moved and went to a lot of concerts this summer and tried to stay like as active as possible as I could, like with my hockey work, It's kind of hard in the summer sometimes, especially when not a lot of things happen, but the Hurricanes were busy enough to give me things to write about.
For sure. Well, it sounds like you had a busier offseason than the Washington Capitals. So let's dive in a little bit. So let's kind of orient the Capitals offseason because they did basically nothing, unless you want to count Justin Sourdif and Declan Chisholm as significant additions. But I don't know, like, Corey, what do you make of the fact that the Caps did basically nothing to the top. They're retaining their entire defense, their entire goaltending, and adding, I guess you would say, two, like one forward essentially to the lineup. So what do you make of the lack of activity from the Caps this offseason?
Well, I know they did kind of their most of their work last year and like in the off season, like with making the Chikrin trade and then signing him long term and getting a few of these guys signed long term, like Dubois on the books for a little bit. And they got Ovechkin's next contract after this year.
Mhm.
So I think they just kind of I think they saw last year maybe as house money, and they have guys coming in like Ryan Leonard, who they see as getting better, and like they probably see McMichael taking a step forward too. And I don't know. I feel like I guess it is a little strange that they did for them not to do anything, considering like how far they got last year and what was kind of seen as a retool season. And some of the other teams in the division were making changes, whether it's like the coaching staff or on the roster. So I don't know. I guess like I didn't really think about that, but like on one hand, I'm like, well, it's a strong roster. I don't see why they shouldn't come back with it, run it back, and see if they can do better in the playoffs this year. But on the other hand, yeah, that is kind of strange that they didn't do anything. But I also think like some of their own housekeeping that they did over the summer and or late last offseason, the Chikrin signing was the big one.
Absolutely. And then obviously getting Logan Thompson done and Charlie
Yeah.
Lindgren, who had a phenomenal game last night against the Rangers. Big, I mean, they did a lot of the bulk of the work last offseason. And I think you would, I guess, say this was I don't know, doubling down of the roster maybe because, thinking less of just this offseason and more about all of last year and all the re-signings that kind of happened, even resigning a player like a useful player like Nick Dowd, for instance, really kind of locking in their core here. And I don't know, it's interesting because I think to me it also indicates, and I'd be curious your thoughts on this too, kind of a confidence in their growth and kind of organizational depth in a way, right? Because I mean, they had obviously multiple opportunities last year to make a big trade, right? To unclear who exactly was available at the deadline, right? But they kept all their big pieces. They kept even some of their tertiary pieces. And so this year, I mean, obviously Ryan Leonard's going to be kind of the big addition to the roster from last year. But I don't know. It's interesting because they seem to really kind of buy a lot of the steps forward that their players took. And so I don't know. It's going to be interesting, I think, to see whether those bets are validated. And we might actually know, I think, a decent amount in the first half of this year, no?
Yeah, for sure. I also like I'm not sure how active they were in the offseason with trying to get some of these players
Yeah. Well, apparently they were all
like
in
a
on
Martin.
Ehlers and just
Yeah,
got big for
Ehlers.
him.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, Ehlers was the main one. I'm not sure if they were in on Marner too, but he ended up going out west anyway.
Yeah. So
So
fine.
I
Yeah.
think like I don't know, it's kind of just a kind of like a go big or go home approach. Just get who the best guy is, and if he doesn't work, okay, we have a good roster. Let's just try to see if we can go run it back next year. Maybe have some of the young guys level up and
Yeah.
see where it takes us from there. Because I don't know, I feel like the landscape in the Eastern Conference is pretty open this year,
Yeah.
especially with Florida missing Barkov. Not that that's still not a scary roster, but they don't have Barkov, and I think they're not going to have Kachuk for a while too.
Yeah. Exactly.
So like there's a chance like it feels like the conference is more open this year than it has before
Yeah.
or has been before.
So I want to key in on something you said there, though, obviously, which is a lot of players for the Caps kind of took big steps forward. So what do you make about the growth of the organization kind of in the last year, right? I mean, it was kind of startling to basically see every player get significantly better. And I don't know, like, what do you make of that? Like, I mean, is that like, what I mean is the Caps plan at this point to kind of depth their way to a Stanley Cup? Like I kind of don't know what to make of basically all their like major young players taking big steps forward like this. But you're smarter than me. What do you make of this?
I mean, they think really highly of their AHL team and like their
Yeah.
farm system, which I do too, because Hershey's always been a good team. They're always usually in the AHL playoffs. And I feel like the Caps have maybe like they have one of the best track records with just getting quality players from their minor league team. Because like whenever they
Yeah.
promote a guy, he's usually an everyday NHLer at minimum, with the exception of like Alexiev and his playoff performance last year.
Yeah.
But
Maybe Hendrix Lapierre could fall into that this year. I
yeah,
guess we'll have to see.
he's the one I'm kind of interested in because he's had really good games and games where he's just like invisible to me. So,
Yes.
but I don't know. Like over the years, I feel like I bring this up every time I'm on the podcast. Like over the years, they always had just a guy come up and kind of just give the roster a boost,
Yes.
whether it's Kuznetsov, whether it's Burakovsky, whether it's Jacob Vrana, and their pro scouting's probably like among the best in the league, just with getting the B tier free agents or B
Yeah.
tier trade acquisitions. Like Lars Zeller's like the main example I always go to with this. Getting him, he was a core, and he kind of became a core piece there.
Hmm.
But they
Stanley Cup
always,
game-winning goal haver Lars Eller.
yeah, but they always find like they're just very good at finding players, and maybe it's like maybe they finally just see, okay, maybe our roster is actually good enough. We don't need to make any like major trades right now. And maybe they're going to wait till the middle of the season to make trades because this was a very stagnant offseason in general.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting,
It
right? 'Cause, I mean, I
was,
think you were
yeah.
starting to see kind of I mean, we've had a flat cap or essentially a flat cap for a long time. And, this year it was obviously the cap was not flat. And, we're expecting significant growth in the next couple of years. And I don't know, it was actually interesting because it just seems like a lot of players have re-signed and taken, obviously, we have the news today of, Lane Hudson taking I think 8.9 by 8 contract, which is a well below market value. But I don't know, it was interesting because it seemed like almost there wasn't the same reaction of kind of NHL like free agents or teams to the rising cap in the way that you might have thought, right? And it was interesting because I think the Caps had that, right? I mean, Chychrun coming in at 9 million, which was obviously a little bit much, what you maybe a little higher than you would have expected, but it just seemed like that didn't metastasize across the league, and it led to this kind of weird offseason where there was just a lot of people re-signing, a lot of stagnation. I guess obviously the Marner trade kind of, right? So I don't know that was kind of my read, was that it just seemed like the teams and player agents and players themselves just weren't as reactive to the rising cap as you might have expected.
Yeah, they weren't really. And then you have McDavid taking the huge discount on a 2-year
Yes.
deal. I mean, it's going to walk him right to free agency, but still, like that's what he did there. Just gave the Oilers like a blank check to load up
Yeah.
their roster. But
Whether
I
they'll
don't
do
know.
that or not is a different question, but it did
Yeah,
give them that tool.
yeah, like with me, I feel like the sticker shock, some of these high price contracts is kind of wearing off a little bit
Yeah.
because some of these contracts like they look insane like at face value, especially in like a flat cap era, like the Chikrin deal. Like if
Yes.
it signed like 5 years ago, I can't imagine like what the reaction would be. But now it's like that's what you pay a top pairing defenseman now who
Yeah.
puts up points. And like the Hurricanes paid a lot for Keandre Miller too.
Yes,
Gave
they
him a
did.
really nice, they gave him a really big contract.
Yeah.
But and
I would imagine they have a view of how to make Keandre Miller better that we can talk about
well,
as
that's
we
just
go on,
it.
but
It's
I'm
like
interested.
that's just it. Like that's what you pay for a top pairing defenseman now because they did
Hmm.
the same thing with Shea, except he was already signed.
Yes.
And I don't know if like what Miller is making now is equivalent to what Shea was making like 6 years ago, but I know the cap definitely the way the cap is now definitely
Yes.
skews things.
It does.
Because
It
even like
does.
with Luke Hughes's deal, like that one definitely had like sticker shock at the beginning. But again, that's just what teams are paying their own guys now.
Yeah, absolutely. So bringing it back to the Caps just a little bit. I did have a couple of players I wanted to talk to you about, and I have the first few games in mind here a little too. But I really want to talk about Alexei Protas, Corey, because he's maybe my favorite Capital right now. That's not Alex Ovechkin, just to watch him play. So obviously you're not going to expect him to shoot 20+% again this year, but what is the ceiling on someone like Protas? Like, what would be a reasonable expectation for him this year? Obviously given the massive growth and everything, but also just eye test and analytically also took big steps up there too. So what would you expect from a guy like Protas this year?
Uh, yeah, it's hard to say. I feel like last year might be like the best you get from him point wise,
Hmm.
like from like a boxcar perspective, just from how high he shot.
Yes.
But I don't know. I've kind of liked following his development because he just gets better like in one area every season. Like,
Yeah.
and it's you don't see that too often with a guy in his mid 20s, especially like with his build. But I think that also might play into it too, just because like I don't know, probably he was one of these guys that was recruited as an athlete just because he's a monster,
Yes.
and he kind of like figured out he kind of just figures out the level that he's at
Hmm.
after a few years and like figuring out what to do and like kind of honing his own skills. But like I think his ceiling's probably like high end second liner, low end first liner
Okay.
type of player.
Sure.
Like I don't know if he is going to be like the guy you build your team around essentially, but it's also weird looking at this Caps roster though because
They
it's
don't really
like
have anyone like that,
you look
you
at
know?
who is like their it's like who is their McDavid, who is their it's like you have one player that you obviously build around and it's like okay,
Yes.
who is the guy here? I'm like part of me is like, oh, is it Protus? Like he's the
Yeah.
youngest out of this group and he's like the one showing the most development, but I'm also like when the world does he turn into with that unorthodox
Weird
skill
skill set.
sets?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
unorthodox skill set, weird frame, but it's also like he is kind of the complete package because
Yeah.
like he kills penalties, he's responsible defensively. I just think not as many like loose pucks as he found in the crease last year might
Yeah.
just be the difference, like in
I
his
will say
production
though, he
showing
is
up.
actually, and I mean, you could see this against the Islanders. I know Corey, you didn't watch this game as much, but his shot is a lot better, and
Yeah.
apparently he was working on that this offseason a little bit. So I will be curious to see with him. And then yeah, I don't know, it's going to be interesting with him. And I guess the other kind of player I wanted to ask you about is Ryan Leonard, and because that's kind of the big addition in a way. And obviously he came in last year, didn't really produce point wise, looked better analytically than I think than you would have expected. Playing with Majapani, who's pretty good on that, and Eller, who's okay. But I don't know. What would you expect a reasonable? I mean, because if Ryan Leonard takes a big step up, that kind of again, I agree with what you're saying that there's not really a surefire number one player, but I don't know. Like, I mean, there could be a committee, and if there is, it would seem like Ryan Leonard would need to be a big part of that committee for the Caps. So I don't know. What would be a reasonable expectation for Leonard for this year for the Caps?
So Leonard, I think if he's a productive like second liner, I think that's a win. And
Okay.
I've like what I've seen so far, I really like how they're using him, especially
Hmm.
on the power play. They're giving him a lot of touches, putting him on they're putting him on the flank, they're putting him in the middle too, so he can kind of just he can kind of get to like as many loose pucks as he needs to and like set
Hmm.
things up from there. So I really like how they're using him to kind of like get his confidence up a little bit. And I think I didn't watch a lot of him in college either, but I know he was a star there.
Yes.
Like I know he was a star there and he had a lot of hype coming out of Northeastern, but
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of players like there's a lot of prospects like that. But like what I've seen so far is there's a lot of like almost plays with him, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense.
Yes. 100%.
It's like, oh, it's like in the Bruins game, like he dangled around Yoki Haru and almost had a
Hmm.
really set up a really nice goal. I think it was either to Protus or McMichael. I don't
Yeah.
remember off the
I
top of my
think.
head.
Yeah. McMike, I think, but I could be wrong.
But just like those moves in open ice and like the precision that he has, like with just making those plays, I think can be a real game breaker for them. It's just a matter of like figuring out what his whole niche is like at this level yet, because I think he's still kind of they're still trying to figure it out. And I know they're trying to find like the right lane mates for him too. Because I know
Yeah.
first game he was with LaPierre, and they moved him to McMichael with McMichael as a center in the Rangers game.
Yes.
And
Yeah, it'd be interesting with that too because I mean, he was on the third line and kind of what for a while actually the Caps floated this tantalizing idea of actually basically trying to split all of their talent in three lines pretty evenly and then having the fourth line be the down defensive line. And then they kind of went away from that and created this third line of a little bit of misfit toys in a way with Beauvillier, Lapierre, and Leonard. And I don't know, like it was interesting, and I kind of wanted to tease this out a little bit. I want to zoom out again, just about one thing here, Corey, which is it seems like the Caps' approach at this point is to kind of I don't want to say depth their way to a Stanley Cup, but basically create a roster that has no not a ton of obvious holes in it. And I don't know, I'm a little curious the way you think about line construction and whether it makes sense to have three lines with even talent distribution or have the kind of weird third line that they had in the Bruins game of, LaPierre, Leonard, and Beauvillier, which is, I would be probably pretty honest, is not a line you'd really trust with, in prime time, right? So I don't know, like I'm curious what your thoughts and approach to that question would be.
So to me, just as a general point, it just depends on how the lines build off each other, how they kind
Hmm.
of complement each other.
Sure.
Because like with Florida, the kind of thing they had going on was the Barkov line was the dominant possession line, and Bennett and Losterainen were kind of the transition lines. They're the ones that force all the turnovers in the neutral zone,
Yeah.
go and create chances off the rush, especially the Losterainen line or I guess it's Lundell's line when they
Yeah.
added Marchand to it,
Hmm.
because Marchand's still like one of the best players,
Yeah.
one of the best players at counterattacking, and
Yeah.
he just added another level to that. So
Hmm.
and so like the Caps group now isn't really at that level yet, but it's like you have a line that can be dominant territorially in Dubois and Protas.
Yeah.
So there's one thing taken care of. Just depends on how like dominant they can be, how often can they win their matchups, even if they're not producing offensively? And then it's kind of up to Strom's line and McMichael's line to kind of do damage like
Yeah.
in
To
the
score.
other parts of the game.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where you hope Leonard can really pop off. Because like I guess we're like going back to Protas, like you have security with him as a rock at least, whereas Leonard is an unknown.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe this is where, and this is probably where like having like an Ehlers or somebody in this middle six could really like add another dimension to it. But that's a conversation for another day.
No, no, no. Well, and I mean, I want to extend this in a slightly different way. And this is always the fun part of having you on, Corey, is that we end up going in like eight different directions. But I wanted to ask you a little about. It seems like the Caps are unsure about McMichael and whether they want to put him at center or the wing. And I'd be a little curious because I know he's a guy you've had your eye on for a while now. And so, kind of what his game looks like and how he's different when he's playing center and kind of centering a third line versus being more of a wing, either with Strome or Dubois, it seems like are kind of the two that he would go with. So I'm a little curious kind of what your read on him as a player is right now.
Yeah, so I liked him as a center before just because he's one of those guys that really likes to skate with the puck in open ice and kind of lug it out of the defensive
Yeah,
zone.
absolutely.
So I liked him kind of as like a prototypical center, but I think they see things a little differently. But I also wonder if that's just getting him with better players too. Because a
Yeah,
lot of times, like nowadays, it's more F1, F2 rather than like the center has to do like these specific things and the wingers
yeah,
do these specific things. So like, and it's more about like constructing your lineup so your best players play together, or you're trying to boost one line.
yeah,
So I think that's where McMichael's placement comes into play. Because if he's on the third line, you're hoping he boosts Leonard and he boosts Beauvillier,
yeah.
which I mean, in theory he could, because like Beauvillier can have stretches where he is like a borderline game breaker, and
Mm-hmm.
Leonard's the guy you're hoping can do well. And plus, like I think McMichael and Leonard do have complementary skill sets, just
Okay.
with how much I've seen them like to carry the puck. And Leonard's been from what I've seen early, Leonard's very good along the wall, like making passes.
He's better
So
at entries than I would have thought too for someone his age.
yeah, that's one of the things he's done really well so far in my early
Yeah,
tracking, just with zone entries. And I think that's where him and Dubois can like complement each other, like with the give and go game.
yeah.
Whereas like last year, I don't know if McMichael had that, if he was centering a line at least.
No, not really. He actually, that was one of the interesting things I think last year was that he basically didn't. I mean, I think the only game he actually centered, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about this, but I actually think was game 5 against Carolina. Was I think the only game that Connor McMichael played center. So aside from I guess maybe getting switched in and out in game, but it was an interesting thought. And then I think he actually played pretty well. And there's always been something that if McMichael can stick as a 3C, then you love your center depth of the Caps, right? Of Strome, Dubois, McMichael, and Dowd. But I don't know. It's interesting because I don't in a way I don't you wouldn't think of McMichael as a guy who could carry a line, but I actually think he could. He would just need the kind of talent either on the wing to, take advantage of his ability to get the puck in, which he's pretty good at. But I don't know. Like he's not the guy that comes to mind as, oh, this is like a game breaking talent either. So I don't know. It's interesting with him.
Yeah, I kind of saw that. I saw like potential game breaking talent with him, like in his first cup of coffee with the NHL.
Yeah.
But he's stagnated a little, but he's still become like a good player at least.
Yeah.
Like in that, I'm trying to think like I'm always really bad coming up with like player examples on the fly because like I was gonna say Paul Stastny, but he is a totally different player than Paul Stastny. But like Paul Stastny, like not your ideal top line center, but
No.
a good center who is going to keep your line above water and
Mhm.
be like a good complementary player. Like the
Yes.
only like downside with McMichael's game recently is just he's more of like a shoot first guy unless
Yeah.
it's like right by the net now. So that kind of just it's kind of limited just how much he can do
Yeah.
because he's not really looking for he kind of just has like a beeline. He kind of just makes a
Yeah.
beeline
He
right for
takes the
the
puck
net
in
and
the
he
zone and
puts it
goes
in.
to
Yeah.
the net. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like and he goes for the wraparounds a lot too, which is
Yes.
like not the most high
Kind of low
percentage
percentage
play.
shots in a way. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like it's not like he doesn't have good vision either. He just like refuses to use it sometimes, which is
Yeah.
frustrating to watch.
Yes, it is. But we'll have to see, and it's then because the way you're talking makes it seem like maybe he is better suited to be a wing. But well, I guess we'll have to see. And obviously, a lot will depend on whether they feel like
It's
LaPierre can stick, or if they feel like they need to make a move like they did last year to get Eller, who was fine, I guess. Corey, I want to switch to the other end of the ice, then do a couple of questions, take a quick break, and then do a little bit on the other side about the rest of the NHL, kind of previewing things a little bit. But I want to ask you about one more player. And it's the player that the Caps did make. I think he's now their second or maybe first. I need to go back and look. Most expensive player, and that's Jacob Chychrun. So obviously Chychrun took a big step up points wise. Analytically was kind of in the middle, I guess you would say. But you sign a guy to that kind of deal with the idea he's going to be a number one defenseman. Can Jacob Chychrun be a number one defenseman? And what does that look like for him?
I mean, last year, would you say he's a number one defenseman?
I would not say he was, actually. I think he played in what actually I would kind of call the third pair, which is interesting.
That's
But the
right.
Caps balance was so even. I mean, I said this a lot in the podcast last year, but if you looked at the 5v5 distribution between the six defensemen, they were all within like 2 minutes of each other on average
Right.
5v5
Yeah,
time. So
they did.
they almost didn't really have a top pair and bottom pair, you know?
Yeah, they did balance the D pairs quite a bit last year.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
was just wondering, like, if you feel like because like Chikrin has a very weird, unique kind of skill set just with
He
how good he is
does.
at scoring goals for a defenseman.
He's like he plays the maximally aggressive play all of the time. And
Yeah,
like,
like
yeah.
he does have a very weird he has a very weird, unique type of player just from
Yes.
it's like the things that he had like the things that he's really good at are are very hard to find in a defenseman, but it's also like not the like it's not the top thing you even look for in a defenseman, if that makes any
Yeah.
sense, because you don't
No,
really want your
absolutely.
like you don't really care if I mean, a defenseman scoring 20 goals is great and all that, but
Yeah.
it's like it's not like the first thing you really look at when you're like putting a team together.
No.
But like I think his vision and tools in the offensive zone are probably like they're definitely worth I don't know if they're worth 9 million, but they're worth a decent amount of money just with how good he is at shooting like for tips and kind of
Yeah.
getting pucks through, finding sticks in front of the nets, especially with how much the Caps like to cycle like with the
Yes.
five-man
I
weave.
was gonna
So I
say,
think like he kind of it's like he
he does.
complements the team's style really
A
well and he
hundred
fits
percent.
into their system really well.
A hundred percent.
It's just they don't play him like a Drew Doughty or like an
No.
Eric Carlson back in the day.
No, they
So
don't really have a player like that. And I don't think Chychrun is. I think
they
where
don't think
Chychrun
he
excels, and Corey, I'd be a little curious your thoughts on this too. In the offensive zone, his movement both on and off the puck is very good. I think like there's a bunch of examples I can come up with off the top of my head, including against I think Game 5 against Montreal, and a little bit in the first three games here that his movement off the puck to kind of cycle in and generate scoring chances and opportunities is really, really good. And I think that kind of fits in with a lot of what the Caps approach is. And also, I think his countering is okay. That's maybe the one thing I would say is a little bit of a unique fit for the Caps, the way they play kind of through the neutral zone. But in the offensive zone, I think his movement on and off the puck is really, really good. And, I think it's one of those where that's an interesting toolkit, because it's not something that comes to mind as a defenseman. I think it's easy to associate an offensive defenseman with someone that's going to have the puck a lot, right? And Chychrun does that, but he also is good without the puck and kind of finding ways to score. And I think that's something that is a little bit unique and not something you really think about in terms of a number one defenseman.
Yeah, he reads the game really well offensively, especially off the
Yes,
rush too, because he'll be he can start a breakout and then be all the way at the opposing blue line within three
absolutely.
seconds. It's kind of insane to watch.
Yes.
The thing that the one area he doesn't really grade well at is preventing entries and preventing scoring chances off
Nope.
entries, which
He does not. That's why you
yeah,
need him with the
you watch
TVR
his
kind of player.
yeah, you do watch his skating sometimes with the puck and when he's going forward and it's wow, this guy's unbelievable. Then you watch him backwards and it looks like he's never played hockey before in his
Yeah,
life.
absolutely.
And there is kind of a weird balance there. It's almost like he is the player that people accuse Eric Carlson of being
Yeah.
sometimes.
He's like a rover almost. I almost
Or
think on
I
the
guess
power play, for instance. Yeah.
Evan Bouchard's probably the better prime example or modern
Yes.
example of that, where people think the defenseman who scores a lot of points is terrible defensively, which
Yes.
it might be true in Chychrun's case a little bit.
I
But
actually think it is probably true in Chychrun's case.
yeah,
It was
I
not
just
true in
think
Mike Green's case, by the way. I don't think that was always fair, but I do think in Chychrun's case it probably is a little bit fair.
yeah. And yeah, I guess there is balance there. And maybe, I don't know, is there going to be a time where they play him 25 minutes a game or 26 minutes a game? Is it going to be potentially when Carlson leaves after this season?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough to
Because
read on it, right? Yeah.
yeah, because Carberry likes his system right now. He likes kind of the way he deploys them, because I know he
Hmm.
switches defense pairs mid-game a lot too.
Yes, he does.
And Chikrin's not really a guy that's out when the score is tied or they're trailing or they're up by a goal.
No.
So I think it'll be interesting to see this next year. Right now, I think they're kind of just riding with what they have
Yeah.
and going from there after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? Because I think they've given, in a way, they have some flexibility, right? Because because they don't really have a superstar, they could kind of, I don't know. It's interesting because again, I think that one of the tricky things to kind of go back to the Caps, and one of the things I'm going to be looking at a little bit this year is, one of the things that was tough in the deadline was that a lot of the times it's often kind of complementary pieces. It's rare to really see a superstar get traded at the deadline. And the problem the Caps had is that because they're so balanced and deep, it was actually very difficult to kind of identify a guy in the in the trade market, or even really actually this offseason in a way, that would obviously make the team better, right? And so,
Right.
but at the same time, it does, I think, give you room if a player is underperforming. You could probably go in, and it's not like there's going to be a huge gap. It should be a manageable gap to fill. And so I don't know. It's going to be. I think it's one of the Caps are a little bit of a unique roster, and I'm going to be curious to kind of see what the way forward for them is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you pretty much said it.
There you go. And then I guess Corey, last thing is I want to kind of zoom out further. One last question before the break, which is, what do you think a successful year for the Capitals even looks like right now? Like,
I mean,
what's a success this year?
is it winning the division again? Because
That seems like almost unrealistic in a weird
it's
way,
weird to say that, but I'm also
Yeah,
I
because
don't
they won
think
it by a lot last year, but everyone thinks it's going to be Carolina, and I also think it's going to be Carolina.
yeah, I just look at the Metro right now, and I'm like they're better. I'm like, well, them and Carolina are probably going to be at the top.
Hmm.
Then after that, I'm like, everyone thinks the Rangers are going to be better, and they've been very hit and miss so far.
Yes.
The Islanders are young. Pittsburgh is going through a whole retool.
You think the
Columbus,
Devils are probably a playoff team, right?
yeah, the Devils definitely, yeah, Devils are going to
Yeah.
be in the playoffs,
Yeah.
definitely.
So,
Like,
yeah.
everyone thinks, I mean, Columbus made a run last year. We'll see if they can put that together for a full season instead of after Christmas.
I'm a
But
little lower, I think, on Columbus than a lot of people, but we'll have to see. We'll have to kind of see how this goes. But yeah, that's I think my theory, Corey, and I want to kind of broach this by you, and then we'll take a break. Is I think I could see the Caps actually taking a step forward, but having less points, if that makes sense, right? Because I mean, I look at the Caps, I say, okay, like this is a 51, 52 expected goals team, like a pretty good team, and a lot better than than I think a lot of people expected going into the year. If I think they take a step forward and say, all right, like they're 52 plus, maybe 53, and some players took some step forward, they could still be that and still get less points, and potentially a lot less points. And so I want to kind of temper things in a way, because I don't expect them to have a 111 point year, but they could be still taking a step forward, even if they're more at kind of the 99 to 105 kind of range.
yeah, I think that's probably fair, just because what they did last year was a little like unprecedented.
Yes.
And I don't know. They've had such a weird trajectory under Cardbury, just because the first year they won a lot of close games, and
Mhm.
then they barely made the playoffs. And the next year they're first in the division. And it's like you look at all the numbers and it's like this all looks like it all looks pretty legit.
Yeah.
It just kind of came out of nowhere, but they added a lot to their roster in free agency and trades.
Yes.
So like that might just be it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think them being better, but like being maybe not running away with the division is probably fair.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we're going to take a quick break, and then we ran long, as we always do. And on the other side, we're just going to. I got a couple of wrap up questions. I got a couple of season preview questions. But with that, stay tuned.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
When it comes to delivering flowers for life's special occasions, trust the name that's been setting the standard for nearly 50 years. 1-800-Flowers.com. From breathtaking bouquets to one-of-a-kind arrangements, 1-800-Flowers is your authority on quality blooms. Always fresh, always stunning, always delivered with care. And right now, for a limited time, you can save up to 40% off your bouquet and make someone's day. Save up to 40% off today at 1-800-Flowers.com/SXM. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/SXM.
If you owe $10,000 or more in credit card debt, medical bills, or personal loans, help is here. More and more Americans turn to credit cards to get by. National Debt Relief is helping qualified clients reduce what they owe. For many, continuing to struggle making minimum monthly payments could take years to pay off. National Debt Relief has already helped over 550,000 Americans reduce their debt by negotiating directly with their creditors. When you call, you'll be amazed at how much you can save and how quickly you can become debt-free. If you want off the debt treadmill, visit nationaldebtrelief.com today. You don't need to declare bankruptcy, and you may qualify for significant debt relief. To find out what savings you may qualify for, simply visit nationaldebtrelief.com. That's nationaldebtrelief.com.
Welcome back. Still here with Corey. And Corey, so I want to kind of we are recording this, like I said, unacceptably late as a season preview, because the Capitals have played 3 times already, and a lot of the teams in the NHL have either played, I think, 2 or 3 times already. So I guess as of recording, some teams will have played 4 times. So Analytically, how much value do you take from October hockey? Because in a way, we always kind of joke about it, right? Obviously these are games, but a lot of the systems are still kind of taking hold. A lot of new coaches are still implementing things. So, how much analytical value do you actually take from the first few weeks of the NHL season?
Um, some of it just because like the games do happen, you have like at least 10 by the end of the month.
Yeah,
And also like the games count, they count towards your standings points, and they do actually have a pretty big impact on whether or not you
hmm
make or miss the playoffs. But you do have to kind of keep that in mind that it is early in the season. A lot of these rosters are not going to be the same by like uh even by December.
yeah.
So that's definitely worth keeping in mind. But I mean, I do place some value with it in it, but like not, it's obviously not end all be all.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let's do a couple of kind of wrap up things here. So I am going to ask you about the Carolina Hurricanes because they got the guy that the Capitals reportedly wanted in Nikolai Ehlers. So I mean, with the Barkov injury, you have them as kind of the conference favorite at this point. I would imagine we kind of expect them to roughly, from an analytics standpoint, they're probably going to be one of the best possession teams. They're going to probably have pretty good depth throughout. What does Ehlers add, and kind of what are your expectations for Carolina this year?
Well, Carolina, I think the conference final like is obviously the expectation for them.
Yeah, I would
And
imagine
so
so.
far, Ehlers has looked great. Like he's
hmm
had really good chemistry with Aho on the top line. They've set
Yeah.
each other up like quite a few times already.
I was a little
Uh,
scared seeing some of those shifts because I was like, "Ooh, man, they look good
yeah,
together."
that was something I was kind of nervous about. Like, well, I don't want to say nervous, but like going into the season, I was like, okay, like they got Ehlers,
hmm
that's your top line winger. But I'm like,
hmm
there is a realistic chance that this guy is on the second line with Kotkaniemi or
hmm Yeah,
some kind of hodgepodge
and he still
situation
might be for what it's
like he
worth.
was in
Yeah.
Winnipeg.
Yes.
If this doesn't work for like
hmm
2 games, but
Yeah.
so far so good.
hmm
And of course, against the Flyers, he didn't have any points, but he had 6 shots. So welcome to
Right there.
Carolina, buddy. This is your
Oh
life.
yeah.
But still like what I've seen so far is really good. And the second line is going to make or break this team. Like
Yeah.
if Stankoven sticks as like the second line center long term, that's going to be the X factor.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And
Especially given they have him locked up now for quite a while. I think at quite a reasonable deal from what I remember, right? So
yeah,
it'll
it's
be really interesting to see him.
if he's like the player they hope he is, yeah, it's a steal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. And then kind of like zooming out just a little bit further, is there I was going to ask this. I'm not going to ask you to pick a cup winner because frankly it's kind of pointless, right? We're going to have a year and we'll see how the year plays out and then, we'll kind of go as we go here a little bit. But is there any team or two, Corey, that you kind of have your eye on as someone, that is either doing something interesting or, is maybe doing something unexpected? Kind of empty your notebook here. What are you keeping an eye on this year?
So right now I'm kind of eyeballing the Leafs and how they do without Marner.
Okay.
And I was actually doing a little summer project on them. I haven't posted it yet, but just looking at because like there's like this wave now where teams are building their defense around bigger players.
Yeah.
And like a failed zone exit or a botched breakout now isn't seen as like a death sentence anymore, like an automatic goal against or a chance against,
hmm
because teams are a lot better at kind of getting to the house and recovering,
Yeah.
which is where like having all these bigger players on defense comes into handy.
Yes.
And the lead, like, so it helps your defense, but it hampers your offense. So I'm interested to see. I'm like looking at how their defense was constructed and if it's still like mobile enough despite like some of the players that they added, and obviously without Marner going into this year, like how
Yeah.
much he helps like spark their transition game and how that's going to get replaced.
Yeah.
But I'm also interested to see how Marner does in Vegas with Eichel because they got both of them on the same line now.
Yeah.
And I want to see how much he like changes the foundation dynamic of that team like a star player is supposed to be. Because I think I don't know, there's like this whole thing. It's like, oh, you need stars to win, all that, but like I kind of want to measure that impact in a way.
Yeah. We'll
And
have to see.
yeah, I'm interested to see Colorado because this is kind of it's not a last hurrah for them, but I feel like they're starting to run out of time with this core, just
Yeah, I mean it's
building
funny
around
though
it.
because I
Well,
mean, we talk about this, right? They easily could have beaten Dallas, right?
that's just
Obviously
it
an
though. It's like
incredible
they,
games, series, and then who knows, right? I mean, I maybe they would have been a better matchup against Edmonton. I maybe probably
well,
I
that's
would
just it
say,
though, because the year they won the cup was the one time I've seen a team that is all rush play,
yeah,
kind of roll their way to the cup. Maybe well,
yeah,
aside from Pittsburgh in 2016.
yeah,
But Colorado is like the one team that just like speed bagged their way to a cup playing that
yeah,
style. And since then, nobody else has done it. It's gone the opposite direction.
yes.
So
As
I'm
Florida has
interested to
won
see.
two and been to three cups, yeah.
Yeah, so I want to see how they do like in the playoffs and how much they level up this year with Natchez on that really cheap contract on the top
Yep.
line for 1 year. And I
Looks
want to
good
see
so far, I'll say that. Yeah.
yeah, and I want to see if Utah kind of becomes a playoff team this year too, because they play a very interesting style and they have kind of been building this for years. Like it's the same head coach that was in Arizona,
Yeah.
and he was playing this way the first year they got them,
Mhm.
or the first year they hired him, and he hasn't really changed the system at all, despite the team literally playing in a different state now.
Yep.
But I want to see if they can become a playoff team
Okay.
because
All right.
they added like a new piece and Paterka this
Paterka, yeah,
summer.
yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that's we'll have to see. One of the beauties is that we'll get to watch the NHL year, and I know that Corey will be on hopefully multiple times again. To break it down all for us. So, Corey, thank you so much for coming on. As always, where can people find your Japers Rink approved and supported materials?
So you can find my work at all3zones.com. You can
Hmm.
support my projects. I'm working my way through the past week of games right now. The Caps games will be up there by the end of the night.
Hooray!
You can also find me at Twitter or X at Shutdown Line. I don't post as much there as I used to. Also at Blue Sky at All Three Zones. I'm not really as active on social media as I should be with it being the beginning of the season and all, but I'll
Hey
get
man, I
better.
don't think anyone's gonna fault you for not being active on social media. It's a I mean, look, if it helps, you and things, I get it. If not, then I mean, you have a really good product and built in, and I know that it's I think you hopefully, and I can say at least from our end, you've earned the kind of respect and cred, regardless of needing to post on Twitter 8 gazillion times.
Yeah, and you can also support my project at patreon.com.
Hmm.
There's a link to that on my website and my Twitter page.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to try to do a lot of this year is be active in my newsletter, which is all3zones.substack.com.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to do a once a week newsletter thing plus something for like paid subscribers there too. So
Awesome.
be on the lookout for that. And I'm just gonna keep plugging away, try not to burn myself out.
Good, good, good. Yeah, you gotta make sure you got priorities and all that kind of thing. And yeah, I'll have a little note about that at the end. But Corey, thank you so much for coming on. If you like the show, please rate, subscribe, review. I'll give a little note here at the end about kind of my plans this year because I still have to figure them out a little bit. But Corey, with that, thank you so much for coming on, and look forward to having you on again soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hi there. So, a quick note on the future of Japers Radio as this season goes on. As some of you may or may not know, my wife is expecting to have a child in about a month. So, obviously, I've heard from a lot of reputable sources that they're having a kid can make doing a regular podcast a bit of a challenge, especially as kind of real life has intervened. And yeah, so in terms of the future of Japers Radio, we're going to be kind of figuring that out together. I'm not totally sure exactly how episodes are going to work, how much hockey I'm going to be able to watch. And just know that I'm going to be doing my absolute best here to try to get stuff out to you. I really have appreciated all the amazing feedback we've gotten since starting the show. It's just, yeah, real life is kind of interfering here a little bit in a really positive way. And yeah, I think the only thing I would say is that I'm committed to doing my absolute best to try to, produce content that is really good and interesting and thought provoking. And
I will just admit, if I am not able to watch games, I'm not going to podcast because, frankly, I have never wanted to be in a position where I was not watching games and opining upon something I haven't seen. I think that's a waste of everyone's time. So, I will do my best to try to see what I can watch and what I can't. And, that will kind of go downstream of what episodes I can and can't produce. But, and so for now, I think the future is a little uncertain, but I will let people know more as I know more. So a disclaimer at the end of the show. I just want to clarify that I am not going to be taking money or any form of payment or remuneration for doing this show. There are obviously have been ads in this show, but it's important to clarify due to my visa situation and the fact that I would like to stay in Denmark for at least a little bit here, that I am taking no money nor any kind of remuneration for this show. So there you go.
Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu? Is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.